It all begins with an almost invisible advertisement, lost among thousands of forgotten offers on the internet. An entire house being sold for just $1. It wasn't a competitive auction, there were no lines, no investors fighting over the property. There was silence. A silence too strange for something that, at first glance, seemed like an impossible opportunity. Located in a small town where time seemed to have stopped decades ago, the house bore clear signs of abandonment. Windows closed for years, paint peeling as if slowly fading from existence, and a garden that no longer resembled human care. Still, something was out of place, something that didn't fit with the absurd price. Houses aren't sold for $1 unless someone is desperate to get rid of them. And that's exactly what caught the attention of an unlikely buyer, someone who wasn't looking for a home, but a story. When he first arrived at the address around 4:30 p.m. on a cloudy afternoon, the feeling was that the place had been hastily abandoned. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was heavy, as if no one had opened a window in years. Dust covered the furniture, but curiously, everything was still there. Sofas, paintings, utensils. It was as if the former owners had simply vanished in the middle of an ordinary day. And it was at that moment that the first question arose. Why would someone sell a furnished, intact house for just $1? The answer wasn't in the documents nor in the public records. It was hidden inside the house itself. And the more he explored, the clearer it became that this wasn't just an abandoned property. It was a scene frozen in time, waiting to reveal something no one ever wanted to be found. In the first few days, nothing seemed extraordinary, just the typical wear and tear of a forgotten property. But then came the details. Small, almost imperceptible but unsettling. A clock stopped at exactly 2:17 a.m. A chair fallen on the floor, as if someone had left in a hurry. And, even stranger, a room upstairs whose door was locked from the inside. There was no key, there was no explanation. And yet, that room seemed to be the only place in the house that someone had insisted on keeping inaccessible. It was there that curiosity ceased to be mere interest and began to transform into obsession. Because when something is hidden with such care, it's rarely by chance. The door was opened days later, not with a key, but with insistence. And what was inside was not what he expected. The room wasn't empty. In fact, it was the only room in the house that seemed alive. Unlike the rest, there was no accumulated dust. The furniture was organized. There were documents on the table, recent papers, dates that didn't make sense. Because, officially, that house had been abandoned for over a decade. And yet, someone had been there, not so long ago. Among the papers, unknown names, numbers, financial records, and a pattern that slowly began to form. This wasn't just a forgotten house. It was a transit point, a place used by someone who never wanted to be found. The more he investigated, the more disjointed the story became. The former owners had no clear records. Neighbors avoided talking about the place. Some said the house had always been empty. Others claimed there was movement at night, lights turning on at strange hours, doors opening by themselves. But no one ever saw who went in or out. It was as if the place existed beyond the reach of human attention, invisible but active. And then came the discovery that changed everything. A hidden compartment behind a false wall in the basement. It wasn't something improvised, it was planned, built with precision. And inside it, something that explained the price of $1. It wasn't just objects, it was money, lots of money. Organized packages, carefully hidden, protected from time. There were no official markings, no identification, just banknotes kept as if someone intended to return to retrieve them, but never did. The amount was impossible to ignore. Thousands? No, millions. And in that instant, everything made sense. And at the same time, nothing did. Because one question became inevitable. Who would hide such a fortune and simply disappear? And more importantly, why did no one ever return? The discovery completely transformed the meaning of that house. It wasn't a cheap property, it was a secret someone tried to erase as quietly as possible, selling everything for a symbolic price, ensuring no one would look twice, because the true value wasn't in the structure nor the location, it was buried inside. And now, that secret had a new owner, someone who, unknowingly, crossed an invisible line between chance and something much bigger. In the following days, things began to change. Small signs that the discovery hadn't gone unnoticed. A car parked on the street for too long. footsteps around the house in the early hours of the morning. Sounds that weren't there before. Because secrets of this size don't stay hidden forever, but they aren't forgotten either. And when someone finds something that should never have been found, the story rarely ends there. The money raised more questions than answers. There were no bank records, no clear origin. It was as if it had been removed from the system and kept there, far from any trace, an invisible reserve, and this led to a disturbing possibility. That house wasn't the final hiding place. It was just one point within something much larger, a piece of a system that no one could fully see. And by finding that money, he didn't just discover a secret, he became part of it. To this day, no one knows for sure who left that money there. There are no confirmed names, no official stories, only theories. Some speak of financial crimes, others of clandestine operations. But none fully explains the silence, the disappearance, and the reason why that house was sold for $1. Because, in the end, the price was never about the value of the property. It was about keeping curious people away, about ensuring that no one looked deep enough. And for a while, it worked. But secrets have an inevitable characteristic. They always find a way to surface, even if it takes years, even if it costs dearly. Because sometimes the greatest mystery isn't what was hidden, but why someone went to so much trouble to hide it. And in that small forgotten house, sold for less than the price of a coffee, there was an answer that no one was prepared to find.